Tonight on Reporting Scotland, Sheku Bayo died after being restrained by police. 3 years on, his family sue Police Scotland.
He will not be forgotten, he will not stop beloved and remembering him, and we will fight to make sure Shek gets the justice he deserves. Also on the programme, Scottish and UK ministers meet in London in a bid to settle a dispute over what powers go where after Brexit. A BBC investigation uncovers dangerous and illegal second-hand car tyres for sale in some Scottish garages.
We look at how and why Norway has taken child witnesses out of court and why Scotland might follow suit.
And the Rugby Super Six, we gauge reaction to the radical shake-up of club rugby here. Good evening. The family of a man who died after being restrained by police are suing Police Scotland for almost £2 million. 31-year-old Sheku Bayo lost consciousness during the incident 3 years ago in Kirkcaldy. His family say they cannot believe they still can't get their questions answered about what happened. Aileen Clark reports.
The Crown may drag their heels in an attempt to dwindle support, but I am here to tell you that is not going to happen. He will not be forgotten, and we will fight to make sure Shek gets the justice he deserves.
Colette Bell, venting her frustration that 3 years on from the death of her partner, Sheku Bayo, the Crown Office has still to decide if anyone will be charged with his death. The police say that early on a Sunday morning in Kirkcaldy in May 2015, they received calls that a man was behaving erratically and brandishing a knife. Sheku Bayo's family say he was not found with a knife when the police arrived, but was immediately restrained and face down on the ground, losing consciousness minutes later, and died.
There have been 9 door stewards that had restrained a member of the public, used weapons, and that individual dropped down dead. I suspect very much that the Crown Office would not have taken 3 years to decide whether those 9 door stewards should end up in a court of law or not.
A civil action suing Police Scotland for more than £1.8 million has now been lodged. The family say it's not about seeking money, it's about seeking answers.
Our hope is for fairer Scotland and justice for all, by the young, old, black or white.
The Crown Office, who run the prosecution service, say they've kept the family informed and considerable progress has been made in the last few months. It's anticipated a full report will be submitted for the consideration of the most senior lawyers in the Crown Office in due course. The family are also asking that the head of the Police Investigation and Review Body, Kate Frame, resigns.
I think it was flawed from the beginning.
From the start, she has tried to aim at justifying the police action, and blaming Sheku for his own death.
PERC said today they've given 2 reports into Sheku Bayo's death to the Crown Office, one in August 2015, the other a year later. And more than 500 statements were obtained by PERC investigators from a wide range of experts, including those suggested by the Bayo family. Police Scotland wouldn't comment, other than to acknowledge a civil action has been lodged. Aileen Clark, Reporting Scotland.
Brexit and its impact on devolution is under the spotlight again at Westminster this evening. The UK and Scottish governments have been holding more talks to try and break the deadlock on what should happen to powers that come back from Brussels. Last week, you recall, the SNP rejected plans by UK ministers, while the Welsh government accepted them. From Westminster, Nick Hurdley reports.
Waiting, still waiting. Sometimes it feels like the process of sorting out Brexit has slowed to a crawl, if you're lucky. Today's unanswered questions. In Downing Street, what trading relationship do we want with Europe? Senior ministers are discussing the government's goals today.
Are you happy with a customs partnership?
But they're not all on the same page yet, nor are the Scottish and UK governments on what taking back control means for devolution. There are fears current plans would restrict Scottish ministers.
The danger and the difficulty for the Scottish Government, but more particularly for far as I'm concerned, for Food Standards Agency, is that we would be unable to produce policies and promote policies that took account of the differences in Scotland and of the different public needs in Scotland.
That's at the heart of talks here tonight. Should Westminster be able to freeze devolved powers to protect trade, or does that require Holyrood's permission to protect devolution?
We've put a lot of time and effort into reaching agreement. I'm hoping that the Scottish Government will be prepared to reconsider the position that Nicola Sturgeon has set out.
I want to get an agreement. If other people want to get an agreement, we know what the agreement looks like, so let's see where we go.
Decisions made in here and further up the road at the Cabinet Office will eventually give us more details about what Brexit looks like, but for now many of them remain elusive because big battles are still being fought, big questions still need answers. So the waiting continues until they're resolved. Nick Eardley reporting Scotland, Westminster.
Well, that meeting between the Scottish and UK governments has just ended, so let's go to our political correspondent, David Porter. David, have you managed to learn anything?
Jackie, they have finished their meeting, they have been continuing to talk, and they have been continuing to disagree. They've been holding their negotiations in the building behind me, number 70 Whitehall, the Cabinet Office. And if you look closely, it is shrouded in scaffolding because it's undergoing some major restoration work. There are many people who think that the relationship between the Scottish and the UK governments over Brexit is in need of major repair as well. It is very difficult as we stand here at the moment to see how the two sides are going to come together on this one. They both say as a matter of principle they cannot agree with what the other one wants. The Scottish Government wants to be able to have a veto in effect on devolution plans. The UK Government says that it cannot abide by that veto for any part of the UK to have over another part of the UK government. The Scottish Government says it is merely trying to preserve devolution. They will continue their talks. They have got more talks scheduled, but it is very hard at the moment to see how they are going to square this circle.
David Porter, thank you. Every year, thousands of second-hand tyres are sold in Scotland. But how do you know they're safe? An investigation by BBC Scotland has found some garages are selling potentially dangerous part-worn tyres. We joined one trading standards team on a raid at a tyre garage, and as Katie Hunter reports, even the experts were shocked by what they found.
They can be the difference between life and death. Unsafe tyres cause more accidents in the UK than faulty brakes. But there's a thriving industry in second-hand tyres, known as part-worns. Working with the charity TyreSafe, we bought 10 part-worn tyres at garages across Glasgow and South Lanarkshire.
Do you do second-hand tyres?
We secretly filmed at Sport Track, a garage we suspected was selling tyres illegally on the south side of Glasgow.
And it's all like legal and everything?
Yeah, of course.
No, there's no problems. Okay, sorry, I'm just like, I'm not too sure.
But we were sold this tyre illegally.
By law, part-worn tyres should have a stamp like this. That shows that the dealer has carried out basic safety checks. But this is the tyre we bought while we were out secret filming. There's no stamp. This tyre is illegal.
We've contacted Sport Track twice, but they still haven't responded. The tyre they sold us did pass basic safety checks. Other tyres we bought had serious defects. Steve Dolby is one of the country's leading industry experts.
This is one of the tyres we bought. What's wrong with it?
Well, this has got a bad puncture repair, so there is a puncture repair which you can see on the inside of the tyre.
Yep.
But unfortunately the hole is still there through the tyre, so the penetration hole is still there.
So if I was driving along, that could basically explode on me. Is that too strong a term?
Yeah, it could deflate rapidly, which obviously could be very dangerous. Or you could start losing air to get a slow puncture, which again could be very dangerous.
So I should never have been sold that tyre?
No. In fact, it would be illegal to sell this tyre as a part-worn tyre because it's against the regulations.
3 of the 10 tyres we bought were unsafe. 5 were illegal because they weren't stamped. Only 2 were both safe and stamped. The worst tyre we bought was 17 years old. It had an unsafe puncture repair and a piece of glass through the casing. When we bought it at this garage in Govan, a worker told us it wouldn't pass an MOT, but we weren't told about the serious safety problems.
Well, we've just been to speak to the garage owner here. He's admitted the proper checks weren't carried out. He's apologised for failing to do those checks, and he said he knows how dangerous having an unsafe tyre can be.
Many councils across Scotland don't carry out proactive checks on part-worn tyre dealers, but North Ayrshire Council does.
So we're going to go in just now, going to carry out a wee inspection of your premises, and we'll run through everything that's explained, all right?
Where's the camera from?
Well, the camera's here, they're filming what we're doing, all right?
We joined police, trading standards and TyreSafe on a raid at one garage which we can't identify for legal reasons.
This tyre is really bad. Obviously it's very worn, but apart from that it's got more serious problems. So you can see the way the tyre is bulging in that area there, and within quite a short time this tyre will give you a rapid explosion on the road, which could be really dangerous.
But there was worse to come.
This tyre's got a penetration damage. That means there's a nail sticking through into the tyre. The only place for this tyre is in the scrap pile.
But both these tyres, and many more, were on the shelf, priced up for sale.
TyreSafe have confirmed to me, and obviously as a safety officer for North Ayrshire, we can't have these on the road. I just feel really bad that these things are for sale in North Ayrshire, but we're here to deal with it.
The garage owner was charged with trading in part-worns without a licence, but he denied doing anything to compromise people's safety. So you don't think from a safety point of view you've done anything wrong?
Well, not really, no. Because it's not in a vehicle or anything. You know.
But the fact they were marked up for sale, though, they had a price on them.
The motor, I would fix the puncture, you know.
Would you not fix the puncture before you priced them up?
If I seen that, obviously I would fix the puncture, aye. Because I wouldn't have labelled that and put it on the shelf, you know.
But you admit there are a lot of tyres for sale with a price with nails through them?
Aye.
It's impossible to know how many accidents are caused by part-worns because so few are stamped.
I was shocked at the standard of tyres being offered for sale in my policing area. To have a 6-inch nail sticking out of a tyre that's been offered to a member of the public is just unimaginable.
Has what you've seen today been a bit of an eye-opener? Or?
It certainly has. It's something that I hadn't paid particular attention to before. It's certainly something that I will from now on. It's something that's now firmly on our radar.
Trading Standards seized dozens of unsafe tyres from this garage and plan to report the owner to the Procurator Fiscal. We'll pass on the findings of our investigation to the authorities. It seems buying part-worn tyres can be a lottery with more than money at stake. Katie Hunter, reporting Scotland.
The Scottish Health Secretary says there are no problems with NHS Scotland's breast screening programme, records or IT systems, after almost 500,000 women in England weren't invited for routine mammograms. Shona Robertson said Scottish Government officials would work to identify any woman affected in England who has subsequently moved here. A leading charity has accused the Scottish Government of not treating suicide prevention as a top priority. The most recent figures for 2016 recorded more than 700 cases of what are described as probable suicides, a rise of 8% on the year before. Lucy White reports.
4 years ago, at the age of 24, Nicola Saunders tried to take her own life. She'd been struggling with mental health problems since she was 10 years old.
Physically, I felt like there was a ball inside of my stomach that it would squeeze quite a lot, and when it squeezed, I couldn't bear it. It's like I wanted to curl up into a ball, and I wanted to scream and I wanted to cry.
Nicola didn't feel like there was anyone close to help her, and she says she wasn't given enough support by professionals.
I was in the psychiatric unit for 3 weeks, and I barely got any support. I didn't have anywhere to live at the time, and I was basically told that if I was going to leave, I would be homeless.
BBC Scotland has seen the results of a survey of 1,000 Scots carried out by the charity Samaritans. It suggests that just over 60% of the people asked had been affected by suicide in some way, and that almost 40% wouldn't know who to turn to for support. The Scottish Government is in the middle of drafting a new plan for suicide prevention. A consultation on it closed this week. It includes ideas for increased training and developing the use of social media. But Samaritans say it isn't ambitious enough.
It's not an issue we're seeing embedded in the Justice Department, in education and how we support young people. In other functions of government, we're not seeing the reflection of this issue. So our feeling is it's not being seen on the levels it should be.
The past year, 17-18, we saw for the first time £1 billion invested in mental health, and now we've got an extra 150 million on top of that for this next year.
Clinical psychologist Dr. Stella Chan specialises in mental health research. There were 728 probable suicides in Scotland in 2016, the first increase after 4 years of decline.
We should be worried about that, but we shouldn't just be worried about that. We should be thinking about what we can do. And prevention or intervention, they don't do themselves. You know, people, you can't just expect these things to happen. They happen because we make them happen.
Nicola now runs a survivors group, offering help she felt was missing for her at the time. She's calling for a more open discussion around suicide in Scotland. Lucy White, reporting Scotland.
It's almost 6:45. A reminder now of tonight's main story. The family of Sheku Bayo, who died after being restrained by police in Fife 3 years ago, sue Police Scotland for almost £2 million. And still to come, Scottish Natural Heritage defends its decision to allow ravens to be killed to protect wading birds. Should we change the way we treat children in court? The Scottish Government is currently looking at a Scandinavian model which interviews and supports under-16s in a separate environment. However, suggestions that children should be able to give pre-filmed testimony have been criticised by some defence advocates. Our correspondent Lucy Adams reports.
In Norway, they do justice differently. They had a problem with low child abuse conviction rates. Now children don't have to go to court. Linnea was groomed online by a man twice her age. She gave her evidence at the Barnehus. In January, he was convicted of grooming 49 girls and sentenced to 15 years.
I felt a lot of shame around the whole thing. So if I didn't know that I could come here and tell everything in a private room with one police officer, then I probably wouldn't have admitted that it was me that he had been talking to.
The boy, who can't be identified because of his age, assaulted Lindsay Armstrong in Newcomnock in Ayrshire last year.
Linda Armstrong believes the trauma of being cross-examined in court in Scotland caused her teenage daughter to kill herself.
She seemed to be unable to get over it. It was like walking on eggshells around her. You didn't know what to say to her. She was just sort of sad and withdrawn a lot.
Lindsay was raped in 2001 when she was just 16. In the Norwegian system, she wouldn't have been cross-examined because she was a child.
This is a room for the young children that like to play with the dolls.
Superintendent Hannah Blomfelt has spent years being trained in how to interview child witnesses.
And it's really important for me to connect with a child so I can have a good interview. Otherwise, I don't get that information I really want. I will sit in this chair and the child will sit in this chair.
Rather than appearing in court or via video link, children as young as 2 are interviewed here by a police officer, an interview watched by lawyers and experts in another room. The Barnehus approach was introduced because of concerns abuse was not being tackled and children were too afraid to come forward.
It was a hidden problem and it wasn't common to talk with children about this kind of cases. Today it's many cases going to court and many cases are being reported. The most important with the Children's House is to stop the abuse of children.
The Norwegian system is now admired around the world. That's why Scotland's most senior judge came here when he was looking at finding a better way of gathering evidence and protecting child witnesses. And he was impressed.
We could devise a system which we would hope would meet with general approval, whereby the evidence of that person, of somebody of that age, could all be taken effectively at a single interview or in a single interview process by people specially trained to do that. That is to say, following the Norwegian system.
It's an expensive model, but one the Scottish Government is seriously considering.
I'd like us to start to test out that concept here in Scotland about having a change in our approach and no longer having children in the court system and the greater use of pre-recorded evidence. But we have to balance that between the rights of the child also alongside the rights of the accused.
But QC Derek Ogg says it's a flawed system.
What I don't like in the Norwegian system is that examination you talked about where the defence don't get to cross-examine and the prosecutor doesn't get to cross-examine. It's a trained police officer. Now, how is that going to be a fair trial?
Lindsay's family think she would still be alive today if she hadn't taken the stand.
I think that would have made a massive difference. It was the embarrassment and the humiliation standing in the court and having to tell a bunch of strangers what happened to her and been forced to hold up her underwear that she was wearing. I feel that it would just stop that sort of thing. That wouldn't have happened.
Lucy Adams, reporting Scotland.
Scottish Natural Heritage has defended its controversial decision to allow ravens to be killed in order to protect wading birds. The licence for an area in Perthshire has prompted outrage from conservationists because ravens are a protected species. Our environment correspondent Kevin Keane reports.
Who wouldn't want to go out on a moorland this time of year and see that magnificent flight of the curlew or hear the song of these birds?
Ravens are a problem.
There should be a robust scientific evidence base to support that. And under this particular example, we don't believe that's there.
It's a significant row over the moral question of whether to shoot one bird to protect another. Here in Glencoig, wading birds are in abundance, but across Scotland they're in rapid decline. And this gamekeeper has seen them targeted by the ravens on a killing spree across the glen.
They may only be here for less than 3-4 hours because they'll hoover that area as well as any spaniel will hunt a field. They will go back and forward in the wind over that area, and that's when the damage is done.
The licence allows gamekeepers to shoot up to 69 ravens in the first year of the trial, but because they're a protected bird, it's caused outrage.
Well, there are a number of things that need to be done to help wading birds, and there's more research that's required, certainly. But under circumstances where potentially control of predators is being looked at, we think that should be an absolute last resort.
This has become a polarised issue, with land managers saying they're on the side of conservation and their accusers saying this is about nothing more than preserving the red grouse. For Scottish Natural Heritage, well, they might feel like they're caught in the middle.
Really understand that some people find this a difficult topic. Killing one species to protect another isn't something that others like, but unfortunately it's something that land managers do on a regular basis, and they have to do that to protect their interests.
RSPB Scotland wants the licence suspended pending a review. The gamekeepers say if they've a better idea for protecting the waders, then they should say. Kevin Keane reporting Scotland, Glencoig.
2 Rangers directors have resigned from the club's board. Paul Murray and Barry Scott were both non-executive directors at Ibrox. Paul Murray, seen here with Chairman Dave King, have been on the board since March 2015. Hong Kong-based businessman Barry Scott joined the board last December. Now, it's been described as the biggest shake-up in Scottish rugby since professionalism in the mid-90s. 6 clubs have been selected to play in the Super Six competition, but not everyone is happy, as Andy Burke reports.
This man's vision come to fruition. Super Six is the key component in Mark Dodson's plan to bridge the gap between the amateur and professional game, and he believes it's a significant step.
I think this is a really historic day for Scottish Rugby. We've now got 6 Super Six franchises. I think it's going to be a step change in the domestic game. We're going to crystallise the talent, the best talent, into 6 clubs. Once this Super Six tournament gets underway, people will realise that this is not like the BT Premiership what used to be. This is a completely different initiative, and it'll be event rugby.
Those 6 clubs will consist of 3 from Edinburgh, Boroughmuir, Heriots and Watsonians, 1 Borders club in Melrose, plus Ayr and Stirling County. There will be no promotion or relegation from the Super Six. The teams will play 20 competitive matches per season, including cross-border fixtures from other home nations. Scottish Rugby will commit £137,500 annually to each franchise for 5 seasons, and it all kicks off next year. The powers that be here at Murrayfield believe the Super Six could be the dawn of a new era for Scottish club rugby, but the limited geographical spread of the new franchises has not gone down well in some quarters.
Obviously extremely disappointed, not just on the basis of Glasgow Hawks' interest, but also for the city of Glasgow. The fact that there will be no franchise in the city, I think, is frankly illogical and makes very little sense to me, particularly given that there are going to be 3 of the franchise operations in Edinburgh.
I think the way the club game is going in Scotland, it's just sort of dying a slow death. Scottish Rugby have done their research, they've decided this is the model to go for, so I think back it, let's get behind it.
That view is shared by Mark Dodson, who firmly believes Super Six represents a bright new chapter for Scottish rugby. Andy Burke, reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
Well, let's get the weather now from Christopher.
Jackie, thank you. Hello there, good evening to you. Well, it was a lovely afternoon for many, some sunshine, a few sharp showers, and there was some fairly slow-moving rain as well, particularly in the northeast. You can see it on the radar there, eventually clearing away to reveal some late spells of sunshine, as indeed many of us will enjoy. And overnight tonight, generally dry, the showers fading away, but cloud thickens in the west with some light rain later on. Where it stays clear, though, it'll be coldest, perhaps a touch of frost across rural parts. Looking to tomorrow, and we have a warm front on the way. That's going to bring some fairly cloudy skies, but something a little bit milder, also quite breezy. So it's a fairly cloudy day in store. There'll be some light rain or drizzle, mainly across western hills, but at times the odd spot elsewhere as well. And the winds coming in from the southwest, moderate to fresh. That will help to break up the cloud, but really you need to be in the east to see the sunshine. So by mid-afternoon, pretty cloudy across the board, 11 to 13 Celsius. Some light and patchy rain or drizzle at times in the west. The further east that you are, drier and hopefully brighter, anywhere really from Edinburgh up towards Aberdeenshire. And in the sunshine, 14, maybe 15 degrees is possible. The chance of the odd shower, but generally dry. Dry too for Orkney and Shetland, just the odd passing shower here. So the rest of the afternoon into the evening and overnight, staying fairly cloudy, staying quite breezy. And Friday, we do it all again. It's another largely cloudy day, some patchy rain in the northwest and indeed through the Northern Isles, but in the sunshine in the northeast, starting to feel the effects of the warmer air. Temperatures 18 degrees in Aberdeen. Inland Aberdeenshire, maybe 20. And so to the weekend. And the position of the jet stream is important. We are to the south of it. That means high pressure controlling things, the warm side of it as well. But look how close we are to the colder air. So there will be some thickening cloud with weather fronts never too far away. Some patchy rain in the northwest. Best of the sunshine to be found across eastern Scotland, and temperatures in the mid, maybe high teens. That's the forecast for now.
Thank you very much for that, Christopher. And that's it from us for now. Good evening.